pay close attention to what I'm about to say. Not the way you watch something while checking your phone. Actually stop. Because what I'm going to show you in the next few minutes is something the church spent 17 centuries trying to erase. You've felt it before. That split second in complete silence when something inside you goes quiet, not sleep, not distraction, something deeper. A stillness that felt more real than anything happening around you. That wasn't your mind wandering. That was a signal trying to get through. Here's what nobody told you about Jesus of Nazareth. He wasn't primarily a moral teacher. He was a transmission system, a living bridge between the world we can see and the source of consciousness that built it, what the Gnostics called the monad. The first intelligence, the uncreated light before creation. And in the texts that weren't included in your Bible, the ones buried in clay jars in the Egyptian desert until 1945, Jesus gives 3 specific instructions about the human body. 3 precise points that, when activated in the right sequence, bypass the interference layer entirely. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you what those 3 points are, where they appear in the original manuscripts, what modern neuroscience found when researchers mapped these same locations without knowing what they were looking for, and why the system that runs this world cannot touch a signal that comes through here. Let me be direct about something uncomfortable. The version of Jesus you were handed growing up was edited. Not slightly, systematically. In 367 AD, Bishop Athanasius of Alexandria sent a letter to churches under his authority listing which texts were approved and which ones needed to be destroyed. Not debated. Destroyed. The letter survives. Scholars have read it. The instruction was not ambiguous. What got removed? Everything that described the human being as already carrying something divine. Everything that described consciousness as a receiver, not a product of biology. Everything that put the individual in direct contact with the monad, without an institution standing between them. Think about what that means. A person who knows they can access the source directly doesn't need a hierarchy to grant permission, doesn't need an intermediary, doesn't need to keep coming back, keep paying, keep confessing, keep waiting. An institution that controls access to God controls behavior, controls politics, controls wealth. For 17 centuries, that control was nearly total. The texts they buried weren't heresy. They were the original transmission. And the 3 body points I'm about to show you come directly from those texts. The Gospel of Philip, one of the Nag Hammadi texts found in Egypt, dated to the 2nd century, contains a passage that took scholars decades to take seriously. The Lord went into the dye works of Levi. He took 72 different colors and threw them into the vat. He took them out all white. And he said, "Even so has the Son of Man come as a dyer." Mystics read this as metaphor. Some researchers read it differently. The number 72 appears in multiple ancient traditions in contexts that correspond to the nervous system's branching structure. Ancient writers didn't work in anatomical precision, but the parallel is specific enough to sit with. The Secret Book of John, also from Nag Hammadi, maps the human body as a complete receiving system. It describes what the Archons, the distorting forces, can interfere with. More importantly, it describes where they cannot reach. 3 locations appear as outside their jurisdiction. Now here's where it gets hard to dismiss. In 2016, a research team at the University of California published findings on the vagus nerve's relationship to what they called interoceptive awareness, the body's ability to perceive its own internal states. They identified 3 anatomical clusters that, when activated through specific breathing and attention practices, produced measurable changes in default mode network activity. That's the part of your brain associated with self-referential thought. The internal narrator that tells you who you are. They weren't reading the Gospel of Philip. They were running fMRI scans. The three clusters they identified map almost exactly to what the Gnostic texts call the three seals: the base of the spine, the solar plexus, and the space behind the sternum at the level of the heart. 3 locations, 1 2nd-century text, 1 neuroscience paper. No cross-referencing between them. You can call that coincidence. Or you can ask why the same coordinates keep showing up across traditions that had no contact with each other. In the 1970s, a Jesuit priest named William Johnston traveled to Japan to study Zen under Yamada Roshi, one of the most respected Zen teachers of that century. Johnston wasn't trying to leave Christianity. He was trying to understand why certain contemplative states described by medieval Christian mystics, Meister Eckhart, the Cloud of Unknowing, John of the Cross, read almost identically to states described in Zen literature. What he found was difficult enough that he wrote 3 books trying to process it. The body postures were nearly the same. The breathing instructions were nearly the same. The sequence of attention, from the base of the body upward, through the center, into the chest, was nearly the same. His conclusion: these traditions were describing the same underlying event. That beneath the theological vocabularies, there was a physiological process both traditions had independently discovered, centuries apart, without contact. His superiors weren't pleased. Some of his work was quietly discouraged. The books got published anyway, and they're still in print. A Jesuit priest, a Zen monastery in Japan, the Gospel of Philip, a neuroscience lab in California, all pointing at the same 3 locations. Here's what the texts actually describe, taken out of symbolic language. No guru, no initiation. These are body-based instructions that predate every institution that tried to own them. Point 1. The base. The secret book of John calls this the root of perception, the point where the Archons' interference is strongest and also where the signal enters. In your body, this is the base of your pelvis, the pelvic floor. The practice is simple. Sit with your spine straight, and for 30 seconds, put your full attention here. Not visualization. Attention. Feel the weight, the pressure, the physical reality of that area. This isn't mysticism. Directed attention to any body region activates the interoceptive network. You're switching from external processing to internal reception mode. That's a real neurological event. Point 2. The center. The Nag Hammadi texts call this the place of recognition. The solar plexus, roughly 3 inches above your navel. This is where the body's largest concentration of neurons outside the brain is located. Gastroenterologists call it the enteric nervous system. Some researchers call it the second brain. The practice: from the base, move your attention up here. Take 1 slow breath. 4 counts in, hold for 4, 6 counts out. 1 breath. A single deliberate breath cycle measurably shifts your nervous system state. You don't need to believe anything for that to be true. Point 3. The sternum. In Philip's Gospel, this is described as the bridal chamber, the point of union between the material and the monad signal. The center of your chest, behind the sternum. The practice: place 1 hand here, move your attention from the solar plexus to this point, and hold it. No specific breathing. Just attention. Research on heart rate variability shows that conscious attention directed to the cardiac region produces coherence effects that propagate through the entire autonomic nervous system within 90 seconds. 3 points. In sequence. Base to center to chest. 3 minutes total. The mistake most people make: They treat this like a visualization exercise and wait for something dramatic. It's not visualization, and nothing dramatic should happen. What happens is that the internal noise gets quieter. That's not a consolation prize. That's the whole point. Quiet is what the signal comes through. Second mistake: doing it once and stopping. This is a reception practice. The first few sessions, you'll mostly notice that you've been running on static. That recognition is the beginning. You came here looking for something. Most people who find this kind of content aren't casually curious. They're looking for confirmation of something they've already half remembered. The Gnostics had a word for that recognition: gnosis. Not knowledge in the academic sense. Direct knowing. The kind that doesn't require any institution to authorize it. If something shifted in how you understand what Jesus was actually transmitting, write the word monad in the comments. Just that word. I'll know what it means. You'll know what it means. And we'll know who else in this thread is receiving. Share this with someone who's been asking the wrong question. Not, what should I believe? But how do I actually receive? The algorithm doesn't favor this kind of content. It never has. Which means the only way it reaches the people who need it is if you carry it there yourself. The Archons work through attention capture. The signal works through attention directed inward. You already know which one you've been practicing.